to the end.
Hey guys, what's up? Furty here. Just wanted to make a quick video regarding World of Warcraft Legion and is it gonna be good? Is it gonna be bad? You know, is it gonna kill the game? Is it gonna save the game? We've been like hemorrhaging subs now for 2 expansions, and I think that everyone is kind of curious whether this is gonna be the big bang that they really need, or whether this is gonna be like the final nail in the coffin of WoW. So been getting a lot of questions. What do you think? What do you think of the new class design? What do you think of the new raids? Should I resub? Should I recommend it to a friend? How's beta? Do you have a beta key for me? All these questions, man. That we'd talk a little bit about that today. Just to kick it off, I guess with some positives. Let's start with the positives. I complain way too much, man. Let's start with the positives today. All the things I love about Legion so far: the dungeon design, the raid design, the encounter design in those dungeons and raids has been impeccable, man. Like, everything that I've tested, boss fights, even the trash, I don't know, everything has just been great. It's felt fun to fight, I guess. Especially the bosses, though. Like, the raiding has been, I feel like they've just, Blizzard has mastered this. This is their area of expertise. Something no other game really competes with is the whole raid content. Maybe WildStar, but no other game. And Blizzard has really mastered not only the balance, but figuring out what mechanics are fun, what mechanics are great. And I honestly have very few complaints. Like, there are very few bosses that we've tested on the beta that leave something to be desired. I mean, it's about as good as it's going to get. And I have no complaints with regards to the raid design. But the dungeons are a little bit of a return to some of the more classic, more difficult. I wouldn't say CC is required, but it is a little bit less Mongo pull everything, and there is a little bit more thought. Like, this pack's dangerous. Be careful. Use cooldowns. Don't pull anything else. Just the one pack. This boss has. I would say the dungeon bosses have some serious mechanics. We're starting to go from dungeon bosses that in the past, like Wrath of the Lich King and even Cataclysm, a lot of the bosses had like one mechanic, and that was kind of reminiscent of all dungeons, right? They had their one mechanic that was their shtick, and nothing else really. And usually you could just ignore the mechanic. It was more of a gimmick than a mechanic, but they definitely are molding. Most of these dungeon bosses in Legion are more complicated than raid bosses were in Cataclysm and earlier. Raid bosses have only got more and more complicated, but these dungeon bosses put those early bosses to shame. And especially some of the end bosses, like Cordana, for example, Vault of the Wardens, is not only a gorgeous fight, but it's also quite intense. So we can only praise the encounter design. It's fantastic. Another thing I want to say they've done really good on is just the visual, cosmetic, and aesthetic of the game. It's great. WoW has never looked this good before. Personally, I hated the way Warlords looked. Thought it was a little poopy and very drab, not much effort, not that much detail. And Legion is gorgeous. Like, everything about it, the bosses, the terrain, all the new zones, all the new dungeons, the raids so far have been stunning. And I don't expect World of Warcraft to look that much better than it does now. So I think they've done a great job. Basically just brushing up on the visual aesthetic of the game, and I think everyone's going to love that. I can honestly not imagine anyone complaining about it. Even some of the new animations, like I was playing Warrior the other day on the beta, and right now, there's kind of like some swinging animations. Sometimes you do a little spin, like a little pirouette with your swords and stuff, but on the beta, when a warrior executes, he's got this like savage hack, and when you charge, you like drop your shoulder and do a bull rush at the camera, and like they're animations that fit, I guess. They feel organic, and they feel very visceral, and they feel like they fit the class a lot better. And they said they were going to work on brushing up on some of the casting animations. A lot of the casters still have pretty much the same cast animations as they've always had, but some of the spells, the individual spells, have new animations. For example, I've been playing a lot of Fire Mage on the beta. When you pop combustion, you glow gold like you're on fire, and you also have these little like fire orbs that orbit you at all times. And when you have a Phoenix spell where you can send a fiery Phoenix just rushing at the target. Either way, like that stuff all looks absolutely incredible. Everything that they've done, updating the spell animations looks great, and I have almost no complaints with regards to the visuals in Legion. It's unreal, and the new questing system they've added. Now, when you quest, instead of you following a fairly set path, you actually can choose. You know, you say, okay, I want to go to High Mountain first. That's the zone I'm excited for. I saw someone streaming that on beta, and that's where I'm headed. So you go to High Mountain, and it scales to your level. And if you decide that you didn't like that zone, you can do the zones in a different order the second time, and the third time, you know, you can change it up again and go in different orders. And I think that's great because not only does it prevent stagnancy with regards to you doing the same leveling path, same zones, and everything the way the game has always been. But it also, and this is kind of something that not everyone thinks about, but on the launch, it prevents choke points. So, like Warlords of Draenor, everyone remembers the Warlords launch where we were all stuck in front of the garrison, the telescope. We were all sitting there waiting for it to start working, and Frostfire Ridge was just lagging its pants off. A lot of people couldn't even get into Tanan at the beginning. And this is a great way of preventing that. Fingers crossed. There are still a few like big RP events, like Stormheim has an intro where you're on an airship, and I could see that being a bottleneck where like enough players, you know, it is instanced, a lot of it, meaning that only you are in that area at one time. But I could see there being so many instances at one time, like created on the launch, that could crash. So I would maybe avoid Stormheim. I just have a feeling that could be trouble, but. That's a great way of solving the bottleneck, and it's also a great way of encouraging variety and, you know, not getting bored leveling multiple characters and whatnot. What else is there? What else is there that's new? The new Transmog system is great. If you know, I'm not really into Transmog personally. I could kind of care less, but if you like collecting different transmogrification items, now every time you get a piece, even if you vendor it, it's stored forever in like this wardrobe where you can always access it. And Transmog now you can reskin any piece. And you used to be able to hide helm and cloak, and now that's done through Transmog instead of through the interface. Like you just cancel them in the Transmog interface. But you can also hide shoulders now, which is kind of cool because I've never really liked the shoulders in World of Warcraft. There's been a lot of mogs that I've done where I didn't like having this gigantic hulking shoulder pads, and it's kind of cool to be able to toggle the shoulders off and also the helm and the cape. So that's a great new option, and if you like Transmog, and I feel like the vast majority of players do, then that's some much needed bank and void storage space just completely eliminated. You know, you will never have to store any items that you don't plan on physically using for Transmog. They will always be saved in this Transmog closet. So great change. Very enthusiastic to hear about that. They've also removed challenge modes and instead added this system called Mythic Plus, very similar to like maps in Path of Exile or Greater Rifts in Diablo, where you are given a keystone, and using this keystone in a dungeon modifies the dungeon a little bit, adds some new mechanics, maybe adds some new very unique modifications, like mobs explode on death, for example, and makes the dungeon harder. And you can scale this keystone infinitely, and doing harder and harder levels of this Mythic Plus, you know, Mythic Plus level 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, will reward better gear. And the only time that it resets is when you actually fail to complete the dungeon. The keystone will reset, and you have to start from the beginning of the ladder. I like that change a lot, too, because it feels like dungeons are finally going to be relevant forever. You know, like we're always going to have a takeaway. Right now, when you do Mythic Dungeons to get Valor, it's like, hell, man, I've done this dungeon so many times. It's so boring and easy. It's not relevant at all. The only reason I'm here is because it's incentivized, right? Like the incentive is like, go back and just do this once a week and you'll get something that you need. But at least now they feel like they'll present a real challenge even several months into the expansion. You set the level of difficulty, and therefore this is great for all levels of players, right? Because the hardcore dudes like myself are going to be grinding away at the upper echelons of Mythic Plus, whereas the more casual or semi-hardcore players somewhere down here and here, you know, they're going to be able to set their own pace and their own difficulty by doing the lower tiers of Mythic Plus or even just straight up Mythic. And I think that's an ideal way of handling difficulty because everyone's going to, you know, it's going to be the same dungeon, like the layout is going to be the same with the same bosses, but it'll only evolve slightly every time you go up a tier by adding new mechanics and new affixes to the dungeon, which is great. Now on to the negatives. I think that's all the positives I can think of. All the great stuff about Legion. You know, visuals, encounters, raids, dungeons, transmog, all that stuff's fucking awesome. And that's all the concrete stuff that we can talk about on beta. I mean, they've promised certain things, but you know, you never know with Blizzard. They don't always deliver. In fact, I think they rarely deliver on their initial promises. But the negatives are actually not that many. But I think the main thing I'm going to complain about is class design. I think class design is definitely at an all-time low. You know, I don't think we've ever seen it this much in the toilet. You know, it's. Some of the classes have been improved very slightly, but I would say the vast majority of them have been degraded in a variety of ways in terms of gameplay, like how fun they are. When you log on to play your class, is it fun? And the answer in a lot of situations is no, it is not fun. And that's unfortunate because just being able to log on and press buttons and have a good time doing it, I mean, that's kind of the core experience in any game is like if you strip away everything else, is it fun to just dick around with the main character or your character? You know, is that enjoyable? And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the classes have had a lot of their enjoyment stripped away in the interest of simplicity. Now, you might enjoy this if you felt overwhelmed by the mechanics of classes previously. They're a lot simpler, more straightforward. Talent diversity has actually gone through the roof, though. So if you enjoy playing with different builds, setting up your character in new and exciting ways every time, that's actually going to be something that's great for you. It's actually something that I like about it, but it's stripped away a lot of the fundamental I wouldn't even say complexity, but the fundamental diversity of every class. Like, it's not built in anymore. Your class is a lot more dependent on your talent choices, and I do think some of the hybrid classes have improved. Warrior has gotten a lot more fun. Shadow Priest, you know, these classes have all needed a revamp for a while, and they've kind of fixed, like, Warrior, Shadow Priest, Shaman, these classes that haven't got that much love. Druid, even, you know, these classes that have stayed very similar for a long period of time. You know, they've taken those classes, and the core identity remains, and they've really just taken the fun factor for these classes to a whole new height. But everything else, man, all pure DPS, all tanks, I would say all tanks for sure, have been degraded to such a point where they don't even feel the same anymore, and they're not fun to play. And I don't know how I feel about it, actually, because on one hand, like, if the raid content and the PvP content is so good that the game is fun to play for those reasons alone, then that's going to be enough to carry it, right? Like, I have fun raiding, I have fun killing bosses, I have fun playing with my friends, playing with a team, and I think that might be enough, honestly. I think that I could be pressing one button and I would still have fun doing those things with my friends. So maybe this is not a big deal, but I'm hoping that we do see some continued changes in the beta looking toward Legion. I can definitely promise that there are a lot of great things on the horizon. If you haven't played on the beta, you can get hyped for Legion. It is a huge step up from Warlords of Draenor. It might not be everyone's perfect expansion. Everyone's always going to have some personal gripes, but I do think this is a step in the right direction. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, and yeah. Expect more in the near future. Take it easy, boys.